Hey guys, it's Shadowswolm, and I'm here to present to you guys the free week champion rotation for week 5 of the 2014 preseason. Now, unlike all the other ones I've been doing recently, I'm just going to go ahead and name off the champions, how many bot games I think you should do, and not just go over like the abilities and stuff like that. So, let's jump right into things, shall we? So, first interesting one here is Yasuo. They did just release him, 2 weeks ago? And he's already part of the free week champion rotation. So, that tells me that they just want everybody to be able to experience Yasuo without being able, for those that aren't able to buy him, lower level people, stuff like that. So, nice play on Riot's part. I'll just tell you as well what sort of build you can expect on him, or on the champions. So Yasuo, expect, high mobility and high attack speed, as well as, good chunk of health and damage as well. I mean, stuff like a Phantom Dancer, a Static Shiv, let's see, what else? Boots of Swiftness or Mobility don't go amiss on Yasuo. An Infinity Edge doesn't go amiss either. And then you'd want to get some sort of tankiness like a Warmogs or a Randuin's. Preferably something that also has Magic Resist tied into it somehow. So maybe even a Runic Bulwark. But, yeah, that's really it, because of Yasuo's passive and, how his abilities tie into attack speed and everything else. Plus, he gets double the percentage of crit that any other champion would, so if he has 20% crit from items, he actually has 40% crit. And then you add in stuff like your runes and masteries, runes mostly, to see if you have any more crit. So again, if you have 25 crit altogether from your items and masteries and runes, then you have 50% crit as Yasuo. So you could actually get to 100% crit relatively easily, just like Tryndamere can. But yeah, I expect to play at least 4 or 5 bot games with him to understand how he plays. One of my coworkers said it best: he's like a Yi that requires skill. Moving on, we've got Gangplank. We've all seen him, we all hate him or love him. Expect maybe 2 to 3 bot games. Expect him to be played either, top lane, jungle, or support. If he's being played top or jungle, you just expect him to be pain. His parlay will, his parlay is very, very mean to people. It can crit, it does massive amount of damage, and he's just an overall nuisance, especially with his ult. And expect items again, such as, a Static Shiv, an Infinity Edge, a Trinity Force doesn't go amiss on Gangplank. And, some sort of tanky items as well, again, like a Randuin's Omen, for instance. Next we have Soraka, who, she's a support, not much else to say. You will almost rarely see her go above, 60 AP, and if you do, it's because she's been getting fed, or her teammates are already fed enough to where she could actually be able to do that and not be a hindrance to her team. Again, you'll be seeing her play support, and, there's really no set support build other than support items and kind of situational awareness items as well. So be wary of that. And I'm not even going to go over how many bot games because it's a support. I would say 1 or 2. Next we have Ezreal. For him, at least, 2 to 3 bot games. And expect him to be mostly played as the ranged, ADC. And expect items, there are 2 different ways you can build Ezreal, either blue or red. And blue requires you to get stuff like Spirit of the Elder Lizard, what else, Manamune, stuff that have blue icons. And red, it's the same thing, stuff with red icons, such as Infinity Edge, a Bloodthirster, etc. So, expect either one. Both are very, very valuable, and both have different play styles. For blue, it's more along the lines of kiting and just being able to sustain your damage in team fights, whereas red, it's more, okay, just immediately assassinate someone and then try and just poke away with auto attacks and some spells here and there. But that's really about it. And again, you'll be seeing mostly built as AD, just depending on the variation. Next we have Shen. high health tank, and really not much else to say other than that. He'll be played either in the top lane or in the jungle. If he's playing the top, I mean, both will have just about almost the same build. But if he's being built top lane, you expect him to be more along the lines of health, whereas in the jungle to be more along the lines of, some damage, some health, some armor, just a good mix of everything. His ult is very, very devastating, especially in team fights. His support, for instance, being focused ult onto the support, even if he's right next to him. Because, hey, that shield is still nice. And for bot games for him, I would say 1 or 2. Doesn't require that many. Next we have Jarvan, who, pretty beefy tank and fighter. He'll be played mostly in the jungle. Very, very rarely will you see him be played, in any other lane besides jungle. You expect items such as, Warmogs, Black Cleaver, what else? Randuin's Omen. It's pretty beefy and, hey, I'm going to shred armor type items. Not so much as, oh, my attack just did 400 damage. No, it's more, oh, my attack did, 100 damage, but it also shredded some of your armor. That's how Jarvans are being built as of right now that I'm aware of. He does it pretty damn hard, I will give him that. And I would say maybe 2 to 3 bot games for him. But again, most of the items you'll see on him are, just along the lines of, hey, get some health, get some attack damage, get some mobility, don't focus on crit. Again, so stuff like a Black Cleaver is just about perfect for Jarvan. Gives him health, gives him damage, and again, that armor shred. Next we have Kog'Maw, who just, oh my god, I believe he actually outranges Caitlyn and Tristana when he goes ahead and pops his barrage. With that being said, he is relatively squishy, and you'll see him built mostly AD, and obviously be that marksman down at the bottom, trying to get those last hits, etc. I would say maybe 3 to 4 bot games with him, just to understand how his Void Ooze works, how his barrage works, how his how his ult kind of can be lined up and everything, how the delay is, how his Q works, etc. But yeah, you'll be seeing him mostly built as AD. Very rarely will you see him built as AP, but you will see, stuff like a Manamune on him relatively often, just due to the fact that he requires a lot of mana to be able to spam his ult and, cast other spells as well. Next we have Xerath, who, very, very phenomenal mid-champion. He is classified as an assassin, as his secondary, but I would just say mage. I very rarely would assassinate people with Xerath. It's more of, hey, look, I just kind of exploded you. Haha. That's really it. He's built very, very high AP, and his passive actually allows him to get armor via AP. It's a percentage of his AP that goes into armor, which that helps him against stuff, people like Talon, Kog'Maw, any sort of AD style champion that, has very high AD or, armor reduction. So that's always, always good. Expect him to be built, Rabadon's Death Cap, a Crystal Scepter, standard mid AP items. And same thing actually with Syndra, and Xerath as well. I would say about 3 to 4 bot games. Syndra at least 5. I'm recommending 5 just because of how her orbs work. That's the biggest difficulty for people to understand how Syndra works with her orbs. But both Syndra and Xerath are very, very good middle lane champions, and both will have very, very standard, AP mid lane items. Again, that Rabadon's Death Cap, a Deathfire Grasp, a Abyssal Scepter, not Randuin's Omen, a Rylai's Crystal Scepter, etc. But, their playstyles are very, very different. Xerath is more of, hey, I'm going to poke at you from range, and Syndra is like, okay, I'm going to toss orbs at you, and then use those orbs again in, later on in the battle, sort of how, Orianna uses her ball, except a little differently because Syndra can have multiple out at the same time. And then last but not least, we have Nami, who's a support. I'm not even going to go over how many bot games, I would say at least 2, and standard support items. And that's really it, guys. It's Christmas Day. I'm done making this video. My name has been Shadowswolm. Don't forget to subscribe if you like, dislike if you dislike the video, like if you like the video, etc. Let me know what you guys think about the free week champion rotation for this week. And as always, I will talk to you all next time.